Hi guys, John Bolton, no relation to Ramsay Bolton, former member of George W. Bush's cabinet and former member of Donald Trump's administration, decided to talk about Brexit. So why the hell not? Now I think I should open a YouTube channel on cardiology, because I don't know the first thing about it, but my opinion is just as important as somebody who actually studied the bloody subject. John is here to talk about how the EU is to blame for the problems not just Ireland is facing, but also the UK is facing as a result of Brexit. Please leave your brains at the door before continuing to watch this video.
Well, I was a strong supporter of Brexit. I was actually here on the referendum day. It's quite exciting. But the Remainers actually are acting in a very Trumpy manner. They're not for 6 years they haven't accepted the results of the referendum.
What do you mean they haven't accepted the results of the referendum? And they're like Trump. Trump doesn't believe that he lost. Trump believes that he won the election. What Remainers are saying, no, actually, we won the referendum. It's the Leavers that lost. I don't know of any of them, and I speak to a lot of them. I've yet to find somebody who says, no, we actually won the referendum. It's not the result is fake news or something like that. The one in the media. It's nothing like Trump. Now there may be one individual out of a million who claims this, but they're not Remainers. They're headbangers. They're like the people who say on the other side, Brexit hasn't been delivered right, or we're still some way connected to the EU and we haven't Brexited.
And they've tried to slow the withdrawal process down. They've tried, I think for many of them, their ultimate objective is to get the UK back in.
Yes, through a referendum, through a democratic vote. Why, John, I thought you liked democracy. Why are you so against democracy now? If a majority of people in the UK would like to rejoin the EU, well, isn't that democracy? Like, this is the guy who was part of the campaign to invade Iraq to deliver democracy. Now he's against democracy all of a sudden. Why is that?
And instead of accepting the will of the people, I mean, it wasn't the Brexiteers who said we need to have this referendum at the time it was scheduled. It was David Cameron, because he thought it would lose, and he was wrong.
Well done, Sherlock. Okay, they weren't called Brexiteers at the time, but these were people who were basically a lunatic fringe within the Conservative Party who David Cameron thought he could quieten with a referendum. And he was wrong. But the problem is that who is suffering the consequences of that now? British businesses. British people who have had their freedom of movement taken away. Farmers. Importers and exporters. So, okay, let's just continue.
But they don't accept the result of the vote, and so things that could have been done 6 years ago haven't yet been done. Or
what things? Please list off some things. I would love to sit down with John Bolton and ask him a few questions, although I have a feeling that he would remove the microphone and leave after about 2 minutes. This guy obviously has no understanding of either Brexit or the EU. And he's going to demonstrate that in just a moment.
Been done very slowly. So, and the Europeans have done exactly what you would expect. The saying that the beatings will continue until morale improves.
The beatings will continue until morale improves. So what he's trying to get at here is that the EU is trying to punish the UK in some way. So the UK voted to leave. Okay. The EU said, please don't leave. No, we're leaving. Okay. And then Boris Johnson's government decided we're going to leave with the hardest Brexit possible. We're going to leave the single market and the customs union. And the Remainers, but also the EU said, look, please don't do that. That's going to be damaging to your country. It's probably not the best approach. And the Brexiteers said, to hell with you. We don't need to listen to you. You need us more than we need you. We'll be perfectly fine as a third country. We'll actually be better off as a third country. And we saw how that worked out.
They just want to make an example of Britain so that nobody else gets out either.
Making an example of Britain. Well, I thought all that was Project Fear. Now it seems to be, well, the EU is trying to punish us.
And that means a lot of the benefits haven't accrued to Britain because of this resistance. And I think if you...
Let me get this straight. So Britain isn't benefiting from Brexit because of the EU. So let me get this straight once again. The UK needed to leave the EU in order to benefit in some way, but it can't get these benefits because the EU is blocking these benefits. So, sorry, what was the reason for leaving in the first place once again?
To break through that, people would see, free from the Brussels decision-making process, life in the UK would be a lot better.
How better? Explain something that's better. There was a Brexit Opportunities Ministry set up, headed by leading Brexiteer Jacob Rees-Mogg, and he came up with nothing. He came up with literally no benefits of Brexit. They eventually closed down the ministry. It doesn't exist anymore. Like, what? Is that not enough for people to look and say, yeah, we were conned? They told us that there were all these benefits. They told us that classroom sizes would be smaller if we left the EU. They told us that NHS waiting lists would go down if we left the EU. That farmers would be better off. That importers and exporters would be able to trade all over the world without tariffs and without barriers to trade.
Yeah, I mean, in the Democratic Party, they like the EU. It's an even bigger government than, the member governments you get.
Now, this guy is a Republican, and he's such a Republican that everything the Democrats do is bad. And now he's trying to say that the EU is a government. Okay, he doesn't understand the EU, but this idea also that if the Democrats are working with the EU in some way, well, then that's bad because it's the Democrats. This guy is so partisan. Look, I'm pretty partisan on things when it comes to the Tories, but this guy is so partisan that everything the Democrats do is bad, and especially if it comes to something like Brexit or Northern Ireland.
Yeah, and then you can deal with one government in Brussels in effect. So there is a kind of pro-EU bias. And I think the widespread belief in the Democratic Party that this dispute over the Northern Ireland Protocol impedes the Good Friday Agreement, and since it was George Mitchell, who was Democratic leader in the Senate, who helped negotiate it, they view it as something they want to preserve. I would say, actually, my observation is that the exact opposite true, is that the Northern Ireland Protocol is what's interfering with the Good Friday Agreement.
I don't believe for a second that this guy has actually read the Good Friday Agreement, and I don't believe for a second he understands it, or he understands the Northern Ireland Protocol. Now, if I was sitting in the room there, I would have asked him to explain to me how the Northern Ireland Protocol is damaging the Good Friday Agreement. Please explain to me. I'd love to know, because I've yet to find a reason. Like, if the DUP will say it, but the DUP haven't actually come up with a reason. They say it's undermining our place in the Union. What's that got to do with the Good Friday Agreement? The Good Friday Agreement that the DUP were against when it was first signed.
The fact is, the idea that somehow all of the protections the EU has for its members would be ruined if you had an open border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland is just completely wrong. It's just...
Now, okay, let's just one little caveat here. This is a Republican advocating for open borders. Now, if there's any Americans watching this, please take this clip and use it as much as you want. You have a Republican advocating for open borders. This is something that Americans go crazy about. Certain Americans, I should say, not everyone. So the EU, okay, so he supports Brexit. I presume the current form of Brexit. He hasn't been clear. I don't think he actually understands Brexit, but okay. He supports Brexit, but he supports the UK being outside the single market and he wants an open border between the single market and countries outside the single market. Is that what I'm getting? Because I don't think I can't really respond to this because I don't think he understands himself what he's talking about.
It's just people are not going to ship everything through Northern Ireland to get it into the Republic, then to get it into Europe. That's just not what's going to happen. What's
it mean going to happen? It's already there. There's a border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And it's to check goods coming into Northern Ireland that could eventually arrive in the EU, into the single market. It's already there. What are you talking about in the future?
Handle this on a much more low-key basis, and the people on the Irish island will figure out how to do it, and then Northern Ireland can have its government, and the Republic can do what it wants to do. I think if it weren't for the EU, Ireland and the UK could have worked this out.
How? This guy probably doesn't even know that Ireland is a member of the EU. And it was Ireland working with the EU to sort out this problem. Ireland didn't vote for Brexit. The people of Northern Ireland didn't vote for Brexit. A small minority voted for it, but the majority in Northern Ireland did not vote for Brexit. So you're advocating for something happening on the island of Ireland. I'm not sure I know, and I'm not sure he knows, but he's advocating for something, and he's blaming the EU for interfering. The EU didn't want Brexit. The people of Ireland didn't want Brexit, North and South. But they have to suffer the consequences because John Bolton likes Brexit. Is that it? Now am I getting it?
Long ago. Now, the previous Irish government figured, well, we're not strong enough to do that. We'll have Brussels do it.
What do you mean strong enough to do it? Strong enough to do what? This video has gone on much longer than I had hoped. But this is nonsensical dribble. Really, it's absolute rubbish. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like somebody brought you in and said, okay, you have to speak for 3 minutes on a topic you don't know about. But you have to speak for 3 minutes about it. You're like, okay, let me pull together what I've heard from other people about this topic. And don't ask me any more questions. Don't ask me any questions. I'm just going to talk about it. And this is an interview with John Bolton on Brexit. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did not. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.